May 29th was a busy day for President Bola Tinubu, who called on the National Assembly to continue to collaborate with his administration in building a country of every citizen's dream. It was also made official that Nigeria will return to its old national anthem. Welcome to Standpoint. I am Precious Amayo. Now, President Tinubu made this announcement to a joint session of the National Assembly. The joint sitting was attended by Secretary to Government of the Federation, George Akume, Ministers, National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Abdullahi Ganduje, and other party leaders.
I'm saying we should use our voices. Can you say nay?
You rang out the latest national anthem. Nigeria will hail thee. Representing all hierarchies and how we blend together to be brothers and sisters.
President Tinubu also announced that he will send the 2024 supplementary budget to the National Assembly soon.
I will soon bring the 2024 appropriation bill. That is just for your information. But we must nourish this democracy, build this nation, so that the future of our great grandchildren will be sure of prosperity and development.
Member representing Shomolu Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives and Chairman House Committee on Public Assets, Honourable Kuye, joins us to discuss 1 year of legislative business for the 10th Assembly. We're also going to look at myriad of other issues. He joins us from Abuja studios. Good to have you join us.
Samia, good afternoon. Nigerians, good afternoon to you.
So let's begin with the very clip that we just played, which is the change of the national anthem from the old one. We're back to the old one now. The new one now seems to be the old one. But Nigerians are wondering the thinking, around that particular move. It was faster in the House of Reps, when it comes to passing that bill than it was at the Senate. What was the thinking behind it?
Well, I thought we were going to talk about more important matters, but since you've brought it up, this is not the first time that bills are going to enjoy that kind of speedy passage. There are so many other bills that have been passed with such speed before. And for a matter as important as her national anthem, is not something that we should allow to linger on for so long. And there are processes that are followed. And, those processes have been well followed, and it has been passed. It's now our new anthem, and we'll enjoin all Nigerians to key into it. We are very familiar with it. I'm very sure you know that for those of us that were in school in the 70s, this used to be our main item that used to be the pride that we sing about so loftily. So we're back to it, and it's for all Nigerians to learn to sing now.
And I like that you said for a matter as important as our national anthem, because it is an important issue. The national anthem and the national flag are the national identity of any country. And so that's why we're starting with it before we move on to other issues. And I want to remain on that issue. Two things that people are picking out. Number one is the fact that there is a part of it that says native land. And, they believe that should have been at least changed to fatherland. And then those who say, look, this anthem wasn't written by a Nigerian. It was written by a foreigner. How do you respond to those comments?
Well, don't forget that the Nigeria that we even call ourselves today was given to us by foreigners, by the colonial masters, and so many other countries like that still bears such names. So what's the difference between the national anthem being given to us by... It is not the person that gave it to us that really matters as far as I'm concerned, and as far as the membership of the National Assembly is concerned. It is about the wordings that is contained therein. Because when you look at the diversity amongst us and the need for us to continue to reiterate that our unity must be built on our diversity, our tribes, the anthem says that though our tribes may differ, but in brotherhood we stand. We need to continue to preach that brotherhood. For the man in the north to know that the man in the south is his brother. As long as we call ourselves Nigerians, we are brothers. Those are wordings that are very, very key and should appeal to the psyche of the new generation. Particularly if you look at the part that the last campaign took, you will appreciate more why we should go into this anthem.
All right, so let's move on to other issues. You have you are in the 10th House, and it is going to be 1 year soon of the 10th National Assembly. This is the month. This is June. And so there have been criticisms, around some issues. There have been, commendations around some other issues. But I just want to ask you how you think that the 10th Assembly, especially the 10th House, has fared in the last 1 year.
Well, a lot of things have been passed. For me, like the Southwest Development Commission bill has been passed. It's been referred to the committee, and I'm sure that will soon be passed. From our last report from the chairman of the House Committee on Rules and Business, over 3,000 motions with resolutions have been passed, and bills over 2,000 have passed the first readings, and some have even passed the second reading and sent to committee stages. I mean, the work has been quite Herculean, but members are living up to it, and they are doing very well. I can say convincingly with all sense of responsibility that this 10th Assembly have really done well. Particularly, if you look at the speed at which we even passed the appropriation bill, to make sure that, the new government that was coming in just at about that time, hit the ground running. So a lot of things have been done to support the government.
And which of these bills will you say has direct impact on Nigerians? Because for Nigerians, well, it doesn't seem like those at the 10th Assembly really do care about them. It seems as though everyone is there just to for themselves and not necessarily for their constituencies. And so when you look at all of these bills and motions you have talked about, Which of them has a direct impact on Nigerians and has had tremendous impact on Nigerians?
Okay, let me mention some of the bills that I have put before the House. For example, there is a bill for the establishment of an institute for printing and artwork in my constituency that has been passed, is now in second reading. And there are other bills that have been passed for the establishment of federal medical centers. You will notice that up to date, we only have one federal medical center per state. And the National Assembly has looked at it as being insufficient. And, I'm aware that bills regarding the establishment of federal medical centers have been passed by the House and awaiting presidential assent. I'm aware that, the issue of labor has been looked at. For example, the labor bill that I moved has, reached the committee stage. Some of the issues that the labor unions are raising now have been addressed in that bill, And I'm sure that by the time we pass that too, and the president has sent to it, a lot of things concerning the agitation by the labor unions are going to be settled. There are so many other bills that I can't begin to mention one by one right now.
And the biggest issues, what you just raised are important issues, but for Nigerians, the biggest issues will be security and the economy. When you look at the commodity prices, the inflation rate, and then, the rate of kidnapping as well. And these are the important issues for Nigeria. Not that others are not important, but because of where we are today. Has anything been done at the House to address these particular issues?
I'm aware that the leadership of the House has established a lot of ad hoc and special committees to look at the issues of security. And I'm aware equally that a lot of the motions brought by members, address those issues in the various constituencies. If you have been listening to us, you see members bringing reports of attack by bandits and insurgency all over the place, And don't forget that we don't have the power to execute. Ours is to pass the resolution and ensure that there is compliance to those resolutions. I'm aware that the leadership have even come up with an holistic, solutions to most of these security issues. And they have been sent to Mr. President. And I'm sure that their team are equally looking at it. I'm aware that the National Assembly has intervened in so many ways at addressing the issue of inflation and the devaluation of the currency, And don't forget that so many times we have had to invite the leadership in the finance sector, the Minister for Finance, the CBN governor, and the issue that deals with taxation, double taxation, have been addressed by the National Assembly, and we have passed resolutions concerning them, that will impact on Nigerians. Those are the things that we have done too.
And you say you do not have the power to execute, but you do have the oversight power, and that is the power to monitor, to evaluate, and to call to order. And that the last part of calling to order is perhaps what most Nigerians say they have not seen, that the executive and the legislature are almost intertwined and looking as though, it's one arm of government instead of two because of the relationship. They feel like, the 10th House has not done so much in terms of its oversight and calling to order. And so how do you also respond to that?
Well, I don't agree to that position, my dear sister. I don't agree. Because the truth of the matter is that if you look at what has been happening, and if you've been reading, following the news, you see a lot of investigation going on. by most of the committees. For example, I cite my committee, the Committee on Public Assets. We were recently investigating the sales of 2 helicopters by the National Institute of College of Aviation in Kaduna, where they sold 2 helicopters. And we have gotten to almost our conclusion of that investigation, if you have been following us. Equally, there's been oversight over from the public account departments, over expenditure of state agencies. There's been oversight investigating the issue of spending of the COVID fund. The Committee on Works have been going up and down, ensuring that contracts awarded are executed, and there's delivery on time, of those projects. We have actually been working. There's been an investigation, other investigations that deals with the public assets. We have been working hand in hand with the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, ensuring that we have a comprehensive register of all the assets of the federal government to ensure that there is no pilfering of those assets, ensuring that those assets. Just recently, the House passed another resolution, directing the anti-graft agency to begin to release forfeited assets to agencies that are still in rented apartments. These are things that are going to save a lot of money for the federal government. And those money can now be, invested into more infrastructures for the country.
And we will get to that shortly, because that's the issue around the public assets. I know that there's an investigation around that. And we will get to that shortly. It's quite an interesting one. But I want to stay just on this for a while before we move on to that conversation. You have talked about, all of the investigation ongoing. We've also seen situations where you have summoned ministers, you have summoned heads of agencies. But, and that's where it ends. It's just the summons and, nothing follows through. No order given, nothing much more than that. And Nigerians are wondering, do you just do this summons just to show that you have the power to do it? Or is that something that you're actually trying to achieve, when you do that?
Well, probably because you have not been following the news, and I'm sorry to say that, because some of the agencies have been asked to refund some money back to government. There have been resolutions to that effect. Some of the agencies have been referred, their matters have been referred to anti-graft agencies. Some government officials have been sanctioned by the National Assembly, and those sanctions have been forwarded to the executive for implementation. And we are following up on some of them. For example, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I'm sure that if you've been following what's been going on in the Public Assets Committee, you'll notice that we have had to sanction some of the officials of governments, and say that, look, this cannot be done. For example, we were looking at some of the assets sold, particularly the federal government properties that were sold, and we discovered that mainly they were undersold, undervalued.
Honourable Kuye, we have enough time for that, because
yes,
we'll have enough time to talk about that, because that's where I'm going next. But I just wanted to take another 5 minutes to have, because I know that that's a whole conversation that we must have. But I want to take another 5 minutes on this conversation. And when you say, probably we've not been following the news, I mean, this is a news station and that's what we do. But I also wanted to, because what really matters to Nigerians, I have said that before, is security and economy. Yes, other things have been done in other areas. Are you satisfied at this moment, or is the House satisfied with the performance of those who have been charged with the security of this country? Well,
the issue of security is a very serious one. the fight against terrorism is a global one. And I cannot say that I'm satisfied with where we are right now, because until every part of the country is secured, that's when I'll be satisfied. But so far, our military men are doing a yeoman job, knowing that the country is surrounded by, countries that they don't seem to have democratic governance. For example, when you look at Niger Republic, you know the kind of number of bandits that are coming from that region, and you look at the land space of Nigeria. You look at Chad, that has just conducted elections. You look at Mali up there, You look at everywhere. The country is so porous. And they need to be more policed. There needs to be more recruitment in the Nigerian army. There needs to be more equipment for our military personnel. So I'm not satisfied, but they are trying their best.
So, Honourable Kuye, we're going to take a break now, and when we return, we'll move on to other conversations. Stay with us, everyone.
Thank you.
There is always more to a story than the screaming headline. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labor Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions of their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers in the workplace. On Labor Lens, I ensure we engage effectively the organized labor, organized private sector, and government to get out of them information workers are in need of. I am Sharon Ijason, asking questions that make you get sense of the workplace.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Standpoint. We've been talking about the 10th legislative business. We've been speaking with a member representing Shomolu Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives. He's also the Chairman House Committee on Public Assets, Honourable Kuye. He joins us, or he's joining us from Abuja studio. Thanks for staying with us.
Thank you for having me.
So one of those legislative businesses is that recently the House of Representatives directed its committee, which you heard, on public assets, to launch a comprehensive investigation into the management of public assets by various ministries, departments, and agencies of the Nigerian government. And I wanted to ask, why is there so much uncertainty around the assets owned by the federal government? Over the years, I'm not sure any government has been able to say categorically and clearly the number of assets and the state of assets it owns.
I'm very happy that you have this information, that it's very sad, it's very unfortunate that a whole country as big as Nigeria cannot tell, offhand what it owns. And this is not, the reason is not far-fetched. The ministry or the agency that's supposed to be in charge of that has never been functional until very recently under the presidency of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That's the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. And when this committee, which is a very new committee, was established by the new leadership. The first thing we discovered was that the Ministry of Finance Incorporated does not even have a law through which it's supposed to operate. The last law they had was the Ministry of Finance Incorporated Act of 1959. So the first thing we did was to bring up a bill, for the repeal and then the enactment of a new Ministry of Finance Incorporated bill of 2024. And this has passed the first reading. It's already on second, listed for second reading. And we're sure that this will be speedily done. After the resolution of the House, we have equally had stakeholders meeting where we invited people from the office of the SGF, because we believe that the office of the Secretary to the government of the Federation equally has a big role to play in all of this, because ordinarily in other climes, the office of the Secretary is supposed to be the repository of the assets of the Federation. All the ministries are supposed to have their records there. And we have equally met with the MD, the Managing Director in charge of Ministry of Finance Incorporated, with all his team. We have met with the leadership of the EFCC, inviting them to know what assets are already in their possession, where they have final forfeiture. We have invited a whole lot of agencies. And the revelation was quite shocking, You can imagine head of agencies saying that they don't even know what they own. And that the ones that they own, are not protected, they are not documented. And that's responsible for a lot of encroachments, stealing of federal government assets all over the place. You go to universities, because even in our universities and polytechnics, federal polytechnics, you find real estate developers coming in through the back doors into university lands all over Nigeria. It's all over. It's all over. It's quite painful, very, very, very sad. Those are the things that we have been able to establish in our own little way in the committee.
And that encroachment you talked about, in your findings, is it that people know that, look, these lapses exist, and so they take advantage of it, or that it's just that, well, they find a place where nobody's occupying and then they want to occupy it?
It is the two. Number one, those assets are not well demarcated. You go to airports. Can you imagine people building, encroaching into airports? Ikeja Airport here, Kano Airport, Ilorin Airport, encroached upon. Go all over the places. You see a lot of encroachment. Then you see civil servants who have been given staff quarters to live in, converting the same to personal properties just because there are no records in the ministry to show that this were leased out or were given out to staffs, and quite a wholesome rot in the public asset of Nigeria.
Interesting you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you if somehow you also find in your findings if you discovered some politicians who are also occupying government assets, or if you have also found government assets in private hands, especially through politicians.
No, particularly the ones that were found. Most of the time, politicians come and go. You probably at most you spend 8 years in office. There you go, and that time is so short for people to lose memory of the fact that that property belongs to the federal government. But where you have somebody living in a quarters for 20, 25 years, the likelihood of records missing, particularly when the same people that are occupying those assets are the ones keeping the records, you get to find that mostly amongst civil servants and not too much amongst politicians.
And I wanted to go back to the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. That there was a board, that was inaugurated for that agency under the Buhari administration. I one thought that they have gotten to work. I think the chairman of that board, if I remember clearly, I hope I got his designation right, should be Usman Shamsuddin, if I'm right. Between the time where they were inaugurated, and now, has anything been done, by that agency?
Well, the way most of the MDAs try to hold on to assets as if it's a personal property. We discovered in our investigation that many of them are not fully cooperating with that agency, but we have started to enforce that compliance to ensure that they cooperate and they surrender the list of all their assets to that agency. We are equally working with the ICRC, that is Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, because some of these assets too, when they are concessioned, people forget that they are still federal government assets and they needed to, come back to federal government. They use it in a way that you think that it's been completely sold. So we're equally working on that too, and we're making the ICLC and MOFI and PPE to work together, to collaborate, and not see themselves as rivals, see themselves as, that's what the committee has been doing, see themselves as partner in progress.
Honourable Kuye, it's difficult to believe that no one in government at whatever level would not be interested in knowing what the national assets are and documenting them. This loophole, is it deliberate or is it out of ignorance? Because this one's imagination. Let's even talk about this particular, since 1999, this dispensation. At least we're in a democracy. Somebody should have been interested in knowing these assets. Is it that those who were responsible decided to leave those loopholes to take advantage of, or there were just ignorance in that regard?
Well, if you say they are ignorant of it, it's okay. If you say it's deliberate, I'll agree more with that in order to take advantage of it. Because if you see what happened between 1999 and 2007 in the sales of government assets, you will know that it is deliberate. For example, I'll cite an example for you. I'm sure you know the Federal Radio Corporation building at Martin Street, right in front of Great Nigerian House. It's a 7-story building. It was sold during that dispensation when they were selling public assets. And can you imagine how much it was sold for? 100 million. A 7-story building. And so many assets like that were sold. But what we're saying is that let us have a registry. Let us have a data bank. Let us have an asset register where all these assets are kept. We now know the value of the country assets. We can even use it to negotiate transaction, to negotiate loan. We are not undervalued when we have that asset, by international organizations, financial institutions. But if you don't have it, you are banked only against your crude oil, which is not supposed to be. So some of these things we're investigating, some of these sales we're investigating, and we're going to make sure that all those found culpable are recommended for sanctions.
How resolute is your committee in terms of recovering these assets? And what are some of the challenges you are facing?
Well, some of the assets have passed from hand to about third party, fourth, fifth parties. And it becomes almost impossible to trace some of them because even the MDAs that are supposed to own them don't even have records of them. Don't even have records of them. It is the committee now, unfortunately, we can't get enough fund to do our oversight work going to every state because there is no state in the country that does not have federal government asset. But unfortunately, the funding is not coming, We need to go to those places. Those assets, we can see them on the ground. I was in Ibadan recently for a party. And after the party, the following morning, I set out with my driver and some other friends, And I started looking around because I know that because I schooled in Ibadan. I went to University of Ife when it was still Oyo State. And I did my NYC in Ibadan. All right? And I know that there was some federal government assets around. I went there. Lo and behold, a whole lot of them have been sold. And they are now private properties. And I'm like, what has happened to this? But along the way, we were able to see some. And the state governments are not helping matters too. Because some state governments are just jumping on federal government assets without the permission of the federal government and converting them to residential estates and selling them. This must stop. But unfortunately, we can't do everything except we are well supported.
And I also want, you were talking earlier, you were talking about, the radio house and how much it was sold for. Let's talk about the privatization process and the impact it also had on our public assets. Did you find, were there any discovery in that regard?
Oh, yes, of course. A whole lot of, assets that were said to have been privatized. We discovered that they were undervalued. The valuation report was not even there in the record. The ones that are there have been compromised, whoever did them, when you're supposed to have professionals who can do the proper valuation of assets, they bring quacks to come and do the valuation. So they undervalue and then they privatize, And then, a whole lot of things have been discovered. We won't let the cat out of the bag for now because it will look as if he already made up his mind before he started the investigation. A whole lot have been investigated. And we're going to come up with reports that we'll send to the leadership that will soon be forwarded to Mr. President for execution.
So when you say some of these assets are undervalued, my thinking is that, look, somebody says, this building is supposed to be, for example, let's say 200 or 2 billion naira. Somebody says, oh, let's put it at 100 million naira. It almost seems as though that person wants to go behind and also buy that asset. And so he reduces the price just so he can get it. Is that what you have also found?
In some ways. In some ways, government officials are paid. We can't establish that, but there must have been some form of consideration for the system, for the process to be compromised to favor certain people.
And were those monies, returned to government coffers? For example, the one that was sold for 100 million naira, did you find that the money was actually, put in the government coffers?
Yes, they pay into government coffer. We see that those monies were paid, but that's not the point. The point is a property that is worth over 3 billion that is being sold for 100 million. That is criminal. That is inhuman. That is inhuman.
What can we?
And we have discovered that in so many assets that have been sold. And we are going to make sure that we recall and make sure that proper thing is done, because they are being investigated.
And at the end of this investigation, what can we expect from your community?
I will cite an example for you. An agency of government entered into a PPP arrangement with a property development to build 32 flats in a high-rise building. They built 32 flats. The value of the land was not taken. If it was taken, there is no way somebody will build 32 flats and then what they will give to the agency was just 2 flats. 2 flats out of 32. And these 2 flats in Ikoyi were let out by the developer on behalf of the government. And he paid such money that for the 2 flats that he will not pay for a flat in the Mushin. And that was what they paid into government cover. Can you imagine that?
Was the agency not aware, or there is some sort of connivance between that agency and the developer?
Well, unfortunately, the people, the public servant, the civil servant that did that have left office. The new ones are saying, we didn't know anything about it. We met it like that. We equally are investigating it. We were shocked that this was done and all of that and all of that. We have asked them to bring all of the agreements that they signed because we want to look at it.
Well, is there a possibility that such an asset can be recovered from the developer?
And I'm telling you that this is an asset in Ikoyi. You can imagine a developer telling us that he rented out a 3-bedroom flat in Ikoyi for 1 million naira. How is that done? How can that be? How can that be? And there are so many assets like that that have been leased out. So many assets like that that have been leased out that we're looking at. But of course, it's not, it's not a sprint race. It's not another meter's dash. You have to give people, the benefits of doubts, Let them come up with their own evidence. Let them table it before us. We'll look at it. If it is right, we let it go. If it is not, we impose the necessary sanction.
At the end of this investigation, can we also expect a comprehensive national asset register by the time you're done?
That's the end result. That's exactly where we're going. That's exactly where we're going. I must commend some of the MDAs have really cooperating with us. For example, NIPOSTs have submitted all their assets to the best of what they can find. But unfortunately, like I told the Postmaster General, I told her that that we have members in all the federal constituencies, 360. We have members in the 774 local government. We have been using these members to get information for us from their respective constituencies. Even where the government officials cannot reach, our own members can reach, call their constituents and say, do you have any federal government assets within your locality? We are getting information from that side too that, contradicts some of the submissions that have been made to us.
You mentioned NIPOST. I was going to ask you about that, but I can also imagine the assets for NITEL and NEPA as well. Any findings in that area as well?
Well, don't forget that 3 agencies were created, NEMSA, NEMCO, NAPTIM, under NEPA, NEMCO was given the mandate to sell some of the non-core assets of NEPA. And they're doing that. We're looking at that too. Some of the assets that they have sold, we're looking at the value they put to some of the assets. And we're coming up with our own reports after the conclusion of investigation. They have submitted what they have sold. They are selling in batches, including assets that are outside the country. NEPA has assets outside the country. Same thing with MPA. Same thing with NEMASA. So all those assets outside the country too, we are looking at them, making sure that the right value are put on those assets. And where we find that the right value has not been put by our own efforts, getting our own consultant with our own funding to work for us, because nobody seems to be interested in what we're doing because they feel that, you can imagine, you cannot go to the agency that you are investigating to come and give you money, knowing that you are going to use that money against them. So they are not cooperating. We are not getting anything from them. And, the pulse of the National Assembly is not that big, to support this effort. But we are just in our own little way because of our commitments, a sense of patriotism, that this is a task that we must do and accomplish for the benefit of Nigerians.
Honourable Kuye, I have, quite revealing conversations, and we hope to find, as you continue, as this investigation progresses, we'll continue to have conversations with you just to know some of the findings you have. But I don't want to leave you without asking you two very important questions.
I want to assure you that we would be sending out invitations to you to come to all of our hearings so that you get all this information firsthand.
Absolutely. We would love to do that. But let me ask you quickly two questions before we wrap. One of them is your assessment of this administration, that's the Bola Tinubu administration. And then I also want to get your tell us about what you've done in your own constituency. Because one of the biggest challenges people talk about is, lawmakers just stay in Abuja. Laws are being made, it doesn't trickle down. The benefits of lawmaking doesn't trickle down to their constituency. So I would like to know what you have done for your constituency and then your assessment of this administration in 1 year.
All right, let's start with the assessment of this administration. For me, this administration has done well. They have done extremely well, coming from where we're coming from. You understand? My assessment is based on the fact that when I look at the monthly allocation that is going to the states and the local government now, I see that it has tripled. And if only, our state governors, allow for the money to really get to the grassroots, I'm sure that Nigerians will be better for it. And I say this with all sense of responsibility and honesty. 3/4 of our states today do not have democratically elected local governments. And that is unconstitutional and it's very sad. It's unacceptable. I can tell you authoritatively that, for example, Anambra State have not had local government administration, democratically elected local government administration in the last almost 20 years. Why won't there be agitations? When the local governments cannot have their correct funding, then there is a gap between the governed and the government. And until that gap is bridged, and it can only be bridged through effective administration at the local government, because most of the things that are supposed to be done are the local governments. 60% of the roads in any local government belongs to the local government. 30% belongs to the state, and 10% belongs to the federal in every local government. And that is why it is very important that we amend the Constitution to ensure that local governments get their funding. And where any state withhold local government funding, then the law should permit for the money to be withheld or paid directly to the local governments. And I'm saying that part of the maybe section 6, 7 or 5, 6 of section 162 of the Constitution needed to be expunged, because that is the section that provides for the joint state local government accounts. And that is where the manipulation comes from. If only the money that is being released on a monthly basis, times 3 of what they were receiving before now, before the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu government began, 3 times of what they are receiving now, if it gets to the grassroots, then there will be peace in the land. There will be prosperity in the land.
Right, Honourable Kuye, that's the much time that I have. I wish you could talk about what you've done for your constituency, but I'm sure we'll have you again as the Assembly marks, 1 year in office, or 1 year of the 10th Assembly. Thank you so much for your time. Member representing Shomolu Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives and Chairman, House Committee on Public Assets, Honourable Ademorin Kuye.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
That's Standpoint this week. Remember, you can watch the repeat broadcast at 11 p.m. tonight and 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. Thanks for watching. I am Precious Amayo.